Yeah.
I'm gonna kiss her in a minute. I'm getting nervous, boy.
The Dick Van Dyke Show.
It's been 4 decades since Dick Van Dyke first stumbled into America's living rooms.
My God, Dick Van Dyke is really talented. He sings, he dances. Let's call it the Dick Van Dyke Show.
I said, what's a Dick Van Dyke?
Gray skies are gonna clear up. Put on a happy face.
Rob Petrie was not supposed to be a klutz. But Carl knew how much I loved to do physical comedy.
Rob Petrie may have been a klutz, but the Dick Van Dyke Show was class.
It was more real, it was more vibrant, it was more contemporary.
The funny writer, the father, the funny husband, it just was all seamless.
Beyond the laughter, the show set trends in style, sophistication, and sex appeal.
I've got a crush on you.
There was sexual tension between these two situation comedy people.
Mary and I had absolute crushes on each other.
It was comedic, but you had that moment where you thought, maybe something's going on.
At home and at the office, the laughs were delivered by a legendary cast of characters.
Hey, I got it! Don't anybody move! What? Now you moved, I forgot it!
You don't get that kind of comedy and timing unless people care.
Ironically, this comedy classic was canceled until it was saved by cigarettes.
Kent satisfies best.
The show survived, and the actors thrived.
Mary came in there, a 23-year-old aspiring straight actress, and walked out of there one of the best comedians in the business.
A star was born, but a rift was formed.
Rosie and I were kind of wary of each other.
I think maybe I was a little jealous of Mary. I'm pretty sure I was.
But I think as a unit, they all worked together, and that's what made it so wonderful.
Are you asking me to believe that... All right, wait, don't cut. Here I go.
We were like kids. Couldn't shut up, couldn't stop laughing and clowning.
During the Kennedy era, the Dick Van Dyke Show was the best and brightest that TV comedy had to offer.
It was certainly an ideal time.
It was Camelot.
It was the best 5 years of my life.
Now, the story behind television's first thoroughly modern situation comedy, as Inside TV Land presents The Dick Van Dyke Show. When viewers first tuned in The Dick Van Dyke Show in the fall of 1961, they saw a show unlike anything else on television.
All right, now, where are we in the script?
This was the era that Newton Minow, who was head of the FCC, branded the vast wasteland. He said there's very little on television that really appeals to an intelligent audience.
Most of the comedies in the 60s were silly gimmick shows. And Dick Van Dyke was a much more sophisticated, much more literate show.
Here was a show that didn't insult your intelligence.
I'd like Ellen to come out and say something with meaning. What kind of meaning?
Well, I wrote down a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson.
What show's he write for?
I remember another writer saying, how do you pitch that to a network? Charming people say witty things every other sentence.
The Dick Van Dyke Show ushered in a new era in situation comedy by wringing laughter from reality.
I think the key to the Van Dyke Show, it depicted a modern American couple, not hillbillies, just a modern American couple who were very funny.
Morning, honey.
What do you mean by that? It may be a good morning for you, but it wasn't for me. You didn't have to clean up the mess that this one made when he decided to finger paint all over the bathroom mirror with the toothpaste. Sure, go ahead. Good morning. Why not?
Honey, give me another chance.
It didn't make any difference that he was a comedy writer and that he was in show business. He was a husband and a father and a worker who was afraid that he would lose his job.
Well, Rob, you'll never have to worry about being unemployed. Why, with your reputation, every show in town will be calling you.
Well, maybe you're right. Maybe you better cut down on these lights till they call.
There was a reality to how people really talked to each other. And it was also so close to the political time. It, in a comedic way, made people think about what was really happening, in Washington, with Jackie and John.
A law was made a distant moon ago here.
JFK and Jackie were in the White House, and no television show better reflected the youth and vitality of the Kennedy era than the Dick Van Dyke Show.
It was the first time in the White House we had young marrieds. And these two reflected that. It was Camelot. It was written about even then that Mary and Dick were the Kennedys of the television.
JFK and Jackie copied us.
The adventures of Rob and Laura Petrie, Buddy, Sally, and Mel were the brainchild of one of television's great comic minds.
Carl Reiner is the creative genius that made that show. Without his point of view, without his writing, it would have never been anything.
Comedian Carl Reiner spent the early 50s as Sid Caesar's second banana on Your Show of Shows. By 58, 36-year-old Reiner was dreaming up a situation comedy that he could star in himself.
The smartest thing I ever did was ask myself a question. What piece of ground do I stand on that nobody else stands on? And I said, well, you live in New Rochelle, you have 2 kids, you used to be on the Show of Shows as an actor, writer. Why don't you write about that?
He wrote the first 13 episodes of a series in which he would star as Rob Petrie at the time. It was called Head of the Family.
Richie, this is one of our writers. This is Sally Rogers.
Hi, Rich. I helped your daddy write the Alan Sturdy Show.
And this is another one of our writers. This is Buddy Sorrell. Hello, Buster.
Carl Reiner finally got the pilot for Head of the Family on the air in January of 1960, but CBS did not pick the series up.
If I hadn't failed with the show the first time, Dick Van Dyke Show would not be here today.
Reiner's agent, Harry Kelsheim, sent Carl's Head of the Family scripts to TV producer Sheldon Leonard. Leonard and Danny Thomas were partners on a number of hit TV series, including Make Room for Daddy, The Andy Griffith Show, and The Real McCoys.
Since I knew that he was talented, I wondered why it hadn't sold, and I asked if I could see it. He got me a print, and I saw it.
Oh, honey, I get paid to write bad jokes.
That's why the show smells.
And it seemed apparent to me the reason it hadn't sold is because he was miscast.
Well, not being liked isn't as bad as being hated.
I said, you mind if I try it again, recast it and try it again? He said, that's fine.
Carl Reiner suggested a little-known Midwestern comedian named Johnny Carson, but Sheldon Leonard had another Midwestern funny man in mind.
Sheldon Leonard remembered an actor that he had read for the role of Danny Thomas's son-in-law on The Danny Thomas Show.
Gray skies are gonna clear up, put on a happy face.
And at this time, Dick Van Dyke was all the rage in a Broadway show called Bye Bye Birdie.
Take off the gloomy mask of tragedy, it's not your style.
After winning a Tony Award for Bye Bye Birdie, 35-year-old Dick Van Dyke was exploring his options in television in 1960.
Most of us here think that slapstick humor is cruel humor. It seems cruel, you know, to laugh at somebody who's really in physical pain. And yet you and I...
Van Dyke had already starred in a couple of failed pilots when he was cast in the role that would make him famous, TV writer Robert Simpson Petrie.
What I do is play myself, so it was necessary that Rob Petrie become me, or the other way around. I had all of his insecurities and anxieties, all the things that made him a funny human being. Rob Petrie was not supposed to be a klutz. He wasn't written as a klutz. But Carl knew how much I loved to do physical comedy.
Reiner's show now had a new leading man. It would also get a new title.
I said, let's call it the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Because they called it the Dick Van Dyke Show, it made it appear that I was the star, and I wasn't. It was an ensemble thing.
The next member of the ensemble was 37-year-old comedian Rose Marie. Rose Marie had worked in radio and vaudeville from the age of 3. Sheldon Leonard tapped her for the role of Rob's fellow comedy writer, Sally Rogers.
He said, you're supposed to go over to Desilu for a new show called The Dick Van Dyke Show. I said, what's a Dick Van Dyke?
She was a perfect person to play a comedy writer because she had a wonderful ability to toss off a line.
How do you do? I'm Sally Rogers. Are you still single?
I said, who have you got for the third writer? And they said, we haven't picked him yet. I said, what about Maury Amsterdam?
52-year-old comedian Maury Amsterdam had been writing and telling jokes since he was a teenager in vaudeville.
I've been in show business just 43 years, and I'm sick and tired of it.
No, I'm not. I love it. I really do.
Known as the human joke machine, Amsterdam was cast in the role he was born to play, Maurice Buddy Sorrell.
I went home and I called him up and I said, they're going to call you about a television show called The Dick Van Dyke Show. He said, what's a Dick Van Dyke? I said, I don't know, but we're going to be in it.
You don't want to open a comedy show with jokes?
Well, no.
Maybe we should open it with a Budapest string quartet?
Reiner didn't look far to find a gifted comic actor to play Rob Petrie's boss. He took on the role of the egomaniacal Alan Brady himself.
All first-line comedians, all top bananas, must have ego. They wouldn't be top bananas.
And then they always have one person they yell at, usually a relative. And Alan Brady had Mel, played by Richard Dyke.
Here it is, Mel, $1,000 worth of hair. What am I supposed to do with it?
Well, Alan, I was wondering if...
You want one of them? Rather make a coat for my wife.
39-year-old character actor Richard Deacon gave a sense of injured dignity to the hapless and harried Alan Brady Show producer, Mel Cooley.
Rob, as the producer of this show, once more I must insist that you instruct your staff to show me a little respect.
We're showing you as little respect as possible.
On the home front, the role of Rob Petrie's only child, Richie, was given to Larry Matthews.
I was 4.5 years old, almost 5.
Carl was looking for an actor that had a sense of reality, who didn't immediately read on screen as a professional kid.
Somebody who could be kind of himself and yet still act and do the role good enough where you believe that Richie was a real boy and not a China doll.
Cast in the roles of the Petrie family's next-door neighbors, Jerry and Millie Helper, were Jerry Paris and Ann Morgan Gilbert.
Jerry Paris had been my former husband's best friend, and he kept mentioning, gee, it would be great if you played my wife. And finally, my ex-husband said, if she'd be so great, why don't you get her an interview? So he took me down, and I read for it, and got hired.
Jerry, you're just awful. Isn't he awful? You're just awful.
Rob Petrie was surrounded by a cast of co-workers, 2 neighbors, and a child. Now what he needed was a wife. Finding her had not been easy.
I'd been looking for almost 2 months, or a month at least, to find Laura Petrie.
More than 60 actresses read for the role of Laura Petrie, but Reiner had not found her yet. Soon the search would be over, and the magic would begin. When we return, Mary Tyler Moore makes her entrance.
I could see by the looks on their faces that they had found their Laura.
Every man in America had a crush on Mary Tyler Moore.
And Rob and Laura steam up the small screen.
I was wondering, like, which bed do they go to? Do they go to Laura's bed or Rob's bed?
When we go back inside The Dick Van Dyke Show on Inside TV Land.
In one weekend, you're guaranteed to see all the times that Rob was a jerk.
First time you said you were a jerk, you broke your tooth biting into a soft chicken sandwich.
How about the time you landed in the hospital after you wrestled with a stuffed monkey?
And then another time you were hypnotized, you acted like you were drunk.
Now, I think we've proven what I am.
You get it all on the Dick Van Dyke Show Fandemonium Weekend. It's 48 hours of the best because every episode is fan-selected at TVLAND.com. The Dick Van Dyke Show, all this weekend. For TV satisfaction, guaranteed, only on TVLAND.
As producer Carl Reiner assembled the cast of The Dick Van Dyke Show in the waning months of 1960, he was having a hard time finding the right actress to play opposite Dick as Rob Petrie's wife, Laura. A year earlier, a young dancer named Mary Tyler Moore had read for the role of Danny Thomas's daughter on The Danny Thomas Show.
A year later, when he and Carl and Sheldon Leonard were looking for this actress to be Dick Van Dyke's wife, Danny had an epiphany and said, wait a minute, who was that kid with the 3 names and the funny nose? She'd be perfect.
The girl with 3 names had hardly made a name for herself as the happy Hot Point girl.
I'm Happy Hot Point.
But my girlfriend said, you get to that audition. So I went in and sat down with Carl and read about half the scene.
And there was something in her voice and something in her look. She was the cutest thing you've ever seen. So I stuck my hand out like one of those claws in the machines that you see at the boardwalk. I went above her head and I picked her up.
And literally, as though he were steering a boat, my head being a rudder, he took me down the hall, around the corner, and into Sheldon Leonard's office. And I could see by the looks on their faces that they had found their Laura.
I was very impressed with her beauty and the way she read. The only problem was that I thought she's awfully young. Mary is 12 years younger than I am. I think she was 23 at the time. But no one ever really questioned that.
With a sterling cast of characters in place, the first episode of The Dick Van Dyke Show was filmed on the same day that President John F. Kennedy was inaugurated.
I didn't remember that. I was much too nervous to think about politics.
Van Dyke may have been nervous, but he and his supporting cast clicked from the start.
How about a little poker game Thursday night?
Oh, fine. Who are the players going to be? No women, I hope.
Nah. No, just buddies, me and Sally.
Count on me.
We all just were crazy about each other, got along magnificently, and found out that we worked together very naturally and very well.
They were like an incredible little jazz band that all felt the same beat, all had the same rhythm, and nobody was out of step.
Each cast member brought something unique to their roles, and Mary Tyler Moore brought her own sense of style to Laura Petrie. At the time, TV housewives wore high heels and dresses.
And I said to Carl, they don't do that. I'm a young housewife. I know what I wear. I wear pants, capri pants. And they were kind of form-fitting, although certainly not tight, not by today's standards anyway.
But Mary's capri pants were form-fitting enough to arouse the concern of CBS and the show's sponsor, Procter & Gamble.
And they said, all right, she can wear them in every scene, but just don't let them cup under.
They should not permit the pants to cup her buttocks. Well, what idiots do they get to make up these rules?
I guess it meant don't show that you have a rear.
I said, we'll watch the undercupping. Well, everybody in the world watched the undercupping. It was the best thing to watch.
No one questioned whether viewers would enjoy watching Mary Tyler Moore. In fact, looking the part was about all she was required to do.
I was the only one who had no comedy experience.
But that wasn't her function. When she was hired, she was hired to be what we call an ear.
Hi, darling.
The show's about a writer, and he would come home and say something, and Mary would listen, and he would repeat whatever the problem was.
I had been hired to be a straight man, but Carl thought I could handle some comedy, and he wrote a show called My Blonde-Haired Brunette, which was about my having bleached my hair blonde because I thought Rob was no longer interested in me.
What is that?
Well, yesterday morning, and I kissed you, and you said, don't do that.
And it was a really big acting challenge for her, and she hit a home run. We looked at each other and said, my God, how about this?
And the gray hair!
And that proved that I could handle comedy for Carl.
Laura's signature cry
Oh, Rob!
would become Mary Tyler Moore's comic trademark.
Oh, Rob!
There were some Robs that were definitely written in, but I don't think any of us knew how they would grow.
Oh, Rob! Oh, Rob! Oh, Rob!
9 months after shooting began on the first episode, The Dick Van Dyke Show debuted on CBS in October of 1961. At home with Rob and Laura, viewers saw a more sophisticated slice of suburban life in the goings-on at the house on Bonnie Meadow Road in New Rochelle, New York.
It kind of was the first show that made the suburbs kind of hip. I just wanted to hang out in the Petrie's living room. It seemed like the in place, you know?
Laura, you're a wonderful cook. I don't know when I've enjoyed a better meal.
I don't either. Really pays the fuss.
We thought it was a very good show, but we didn't know that it was going to wind up being a classic.
But it wasn't a classic yet. By the end of its first season, The Dick Van Dyke Show was suffering from lackluster ratings, unable to draw viewers away from Perry Como's popular variety show on NBC. Disappointed, CBS canceled the show.
We all thought, that's it, you know.
I had moved my whole family out here. I had 4 children by now, and I bought a home, and I thought, now what do I do? And I thought, I'm really in deep trouble.
People do not realize the show was literally canceled after the first year. It was only a fluke that brought it back.
When we return, The chemistry between Dick and Mary heats up.
We knew we were supposed to be mature, serious comedians, so we would get those giggles.
Mary, her analysis of that is that we actually had crushes on each other, and we started giggling.
You cue me one.
And later, the battle for That's My Boy.
I thought we had the wrong baby. And I called the other couple. They show up and they're black.
A lot of people tried to keep it off the air.
When we go back inside the Dick Van Dyke Show on Inside TV Land.
Be an angel for a week.
What?
Fly to L.A. with 2 friends and do everything the angels do.
Everything?
Almost. You'll learn to fly a fighter jet, ride a horse, stunt drive, and karate chop, all while looking fabulous because you'll have your own makeup artist and chauffeured limo.
It's part of the job.
Or play Charlie's Angels at home with this glamorous Angels t-shirt and TV Land's Crime Stopper CD set featuring the Charlie's Angels theme. Enter TV Land's Be an Angel for a week sweepstakes at TVLAND.com or send a postcard to this address.
In its first year on television, this show was twice headed for cancellation. On both occasions, Leonard flew back to New York to fight for the show's survival.
After its first season ended in the summer of 1962, the Dick Van Dyke Show was not picked up for a second year. CBS had lost faith in the show.
The president of CBS at that time was a fellow named Jim Aubrey, who for whatever reason was no fan of the Dick Van Dyke Show, and he was more than happy to cut it from the schedule.
Executive producer Sheldon Leonard still believed the show could be a hit. He flew to the Ohio headquarters of the show's sponsor, Procter & Gamble, to enlist their continued support.
He made an impassioned plea for the show.
I did a real Al Jolson on one knee and, Mammy, Mammy. They conditionally agreed to renew it for another season, but then they would only renew half of it.
Leonard got the other half of the sponsorship from the Lorillard Tobacco Company.
Kent satisfies best.
With both sponsors in place, CBS renewed the show.
Thanks to Sheldon Leonard, we got back on the air.
The series' second season went on the air in September of 1962. A second chance was all the show would need.
They put it following Beverly Hillbillies, which was the #1 show. In those days, there weren't very many remotes around. People usually stay tuned for the next show.
The Dick Van Dyke Show would stay in the top 10 for most of its long run. The reasons for its success would also remain consistent.
Great writing first is the most important thing.
Every writer who wrote a show that worked for me, I loved. Gary Marshall and Jerry Belson and Persky and Denoff. There were a lot of writers who wrote for us, and they did good jobs for us.
Carl's rule was tell the truth. Don't make up things for the convenience of a joke or anything else. Tell the truth.
Carl would ask us what was the most embarrassing moments of our lives. That's the way we pitched. People think we sat around and said, I got a funny thing. Nobody had any funny thing. We basically start from what was the stupidest thing you ever did, what was the most embarrassing thing you ever did.
They would take stories from their own experiences.
Who's after you? The giant woodpecker! He was in my bedroom!
Like the story with the woodpecker, which was one of my favorite shows where the woodpecker kept attacking my head. That was a real situation that happened to one of Carl's neighbors in Long Island.
Rich, you know there isn't any giant woodpecker.
Is he all right? Oh, he's fine, Millie. He saw the woodpecker again. Yeah, that's the biggest woodpecker I ever saw.
Billy, we're not going to humor him anymore.
Who's humoring him? That is the biggest woodpecker I ever saw. It looked like a glandular case.
The fruits of the writer's labors were first enjoyed at the weekly script read-throughs.
The moments I liked the best were when we all sat around the table and we'd go through the week's script we were going to do. And that was just a barrel of fun.
We would sit and read the script, and we would laugh and laugh and laugh. Then we would go through it again with everybody throwing in their 2 cents worth.
No matter what the writers wrote for him, Van Dyke was never content to simply say his lines.
Oh, honey, I'd love some coffee.
I'll get you some. Darling.
Van Dyke literally threw his whole body into every performance.
They always let me come in and work out the actual choreography, which I thoroughly enjoyed. It was always the process that I had the most fun with.
One day we had a script that was not going all that well. He thinks he's allergic to Mary. So in rehearsal, I said to Dick, how many ways do you think you could sneeze? Well, if you've seen the episode, it was wonderful, because I think he literally did about 30 different sneeze takes.
Dick Van Dyke was entertaining enough on his own, but in the office scenes with Rosemarie and Maury Amsterdam, the laughs were multiplied by 3.
3 players who could do no wrong. Their timing was extraordinary.
I got 3 bad claws.
You got 3 bad claws?
Yeah.
Have you seen a doctor?
You don't get that kind of comedy and timing unless people care. Because the timing on that show is priceless.
I can't tell you how many young writers writing sitcoms, they said they did it because of Sally and Buddy and the fun it looked like they were having.
Someday he's going to get a big fat lip to go with that fat head of his.
Who's going to give it to me?
Sally.
Maury Amsterdam brought an amazing instinct for the joke. He did the jokes, he did the toppers, he was irreverent, he was the bad little boy.
Dick was usually wrestling with a problem of some sort, and Maury was cracking wise, and Rosie was trying to do both and did it brilliantly. She would deal with Dick and deal with Maury and get these wonderful gags in.
Hey, Richie, you'll love this.
Oh, no BB guns, Laura's against guns.
Okay, I'll take it. I'll use it on my boyfriend, Herman.
Casey gets fresh?
No, Casey doesn't.
When Sally wasn't bemoaning her fruitless search for Mr. Right, she and Buddy were usually zinging producer Mel Cooley, played by Richard Deacon.
Maury and Richard Deacon, who were enemies on screen, just loved each other off screen.
Mel, in the many years of our association, I know I've said a lot of unkind things about your bald head. And I'm sorry I didn't mention the rest of your ugly puss.
And Richard would howl at those jokes louder than anybody else would, because he understood what it was.
One last yuck.
That's always very good when you have 2 likable people who don't like each other. You know, the audience liked them both, but they enjoy them spritzing each other.
Well, I got good news for you. You are not losing your hair.
I'm not?
No, I just found it. Look, there's some here and here.
Rosie, Deke, and Maury, they really loved each other. They were the other team. That was the team there, and then there was the home team.
On the home front, Mary and Dick often found themselves dissolving into fits of giggling while they rehearsed together.
Just because I'm whispering does not... You cue me one.
The heart of the show was this rapport, synergy, friction, sexual tension, and comedic timing between Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore.
We knew we were supposed to be mature, serious comedians, and so we would get those giggles.
I don't want to be a dancer. I want to be your wife.
That's the line.
It was really absurd. It was teeny bopper things, sexual tension.
Back up, please, to, do you remember what you told me?
Yeah.
I'm gonna kiss her in a minute and I'm getting nervous, boy.
Mary, her analysis of that is that we actually had crushes on each other, and we started giggling. And I've heard a couple of psychologists I know say, yes, that's very true.
I've got a crush on you.
I think they both admitted now, years later, that they had little crushes on each other that they never acted on. So they say, as far as I know. But I think it was very real.
That I could fall with so...
They just ignited each other. It was like a comedic ballet on television. It was like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers.
They did have a very, Fred and Ginger kind of relationship where they just complimented each other's steps.
'Cause I've got a...
Rob and Laura's romantic chemistry made the Dick Van Dyke Show something more than a situation comedy.
Oh, yes.
Above all, it was a love story. And the best shows on television were
love stories.
I think the major credit goes to Carl in the way he wrote that relationship. There was sexual tension between these two situation comedy people, and that had not existed before.
The sexual quotient in that show was apparent. Even though they slept in separate beds, you knew there was something going on there.
At that time in television history, which was 1961, husbands and wives were not allowed to sleep in the same bed.
Even though they slept in separate beds, they were a really hot couple. You could totally see them having sex. A lot.
Yeah. You knew that these two were getting it on because of the way they looked and the way they acted and talked and reacted to one another.
I don't think television had two young people up to that time that were as attractive and as talented as Mary and Dick were.
They are indelibly original. And again, the question of chemistry. Not just that they were individually so talented, but that they served each other so well.
Dick and Mary's on-screen magic meant Rob Petrie began spending less time at the office and more time at home with his wife, Laura.
The show was sort of divided into two camps, and there was almost a kind of a subliminal contest for time. And I think that colored my relationship with Rosie and Maury, too, I'm sorry to say. We were not enemies. We never had a cross word, but we just weren't buddies, as they all were in the office, or as I was with Annie Gilbert and Jerry Paris.
Mary's emergence as Dick's co-star caused particular tension in her relationship with Rose Marie.
Rosie and I were kind of wary of each other because, you know, she was hired to be, if not the leading lady, certainly the woman who played off Dick. And then along came Laura, and she was going to be the woman to play off Dick.
I think maybe I was a little jealous of Mary. I'm pretty sure I was. Mary and I were working people, and we got along as well as could be expected, but we never became really close friends. But we worked together, and we laughed together, and had fun together, and ate together, and all of that, but we just never formed a friendship as two girls do, especially ones that are working together on a show.
When we return, Dick and Mary's favorite episodes.
I always think of the show that I had the most fun shooting, and it was called Where Did I Come From?
Hello, operator. Operator, my wife's having a baby.
It's the one where I've been accused by Rob of opening his mail.
And later, the president is shot, and the show must go on.
Who wanted to do a show with an audience? Who wanted to do a comedy show?
When we go back inside the Dick Van Dyke Show on Inside TV Land.
Every morning, every evening.
The Dick Van Dyke Show moved into its third season in the fall of 1963.
Every morning, every evening, ain't we got fun?
Now a solid Emmy-winning hit for CBS, the series was hitting its comedic stride, a television classic in the making.
Hi, congratulate me.
What for?
You're looking at the new head writer of the Dan Rogers Show. What? Dan Howard. I changed his name right in the middle of our first act.
Executive producer Sheldon Leonard worked to ensure that his cast and crew enjoyed making the show as much as viewers enjoyed watching it.
And action, Sally.
Well, that's where Laura and I differ. You see, I wouldn't mind being married to a rich, doddering old man. I wouldn't mind being married to a poor, doddering old man. Because at least if he's doddering, he's... Sure, hello?
Hey, we better go back to her.
I did everything I could to make every set happy, because these people are going to spend more time together for the next 5, 6, 7 years with one another than they did with their own family.
Ready? Action.
Mel, why couldn't I take the afternoon plane?
She goes on the air tomorrow, and Alan will be very upset.
Never saw a guy so crazy about the same line.
People on the Van Dyke Show loved working there so much, they gave it everything. They gave it everything because they were working for good people.
There was a warmth that you felt permeated throughout the cast, the crews. Everything was easy.
It was a show where every actor in Hollywood wanted to get a part on it because they knew the atmosphere was so fabulous.
All these people came from totally different places, totally different backgrounds, but we knew this was a family.
The creative family behind the Dick Van Dyke Show teamed up to create some of the most memorable moments in the history of situation comedy.
It's really hard to say which is my favorite. I guess it has to be the first. That's My Boy.
Sam Denoff and Bill Persky wrote That's My Boy for the first episode of the 3rd season.
Hi, son.
In the episode, Rob becomes convinced that there was a mix-up at the hospital and that their baby got switched at birth with another family's baby.
Bob, are you trying to tell me that we have the wrong baby?
The surprise ending was a daring one for the time.
Hello. Yes, this is Robert Petrie. Who? Yes, Mr. Peters. What does he want? What do you think? Hello. Yes, Mr. Peters. That's right. You have something of ours, and we have something of yours.
I called the other couple. They show up, and they're black.
The network said, you know, this is, you really think this is a good idea? They were thinking it might be offensive to people of color.
1963 had been a year of rising racial unrest and civil rights protests.
They felt that this script made light of the black characters and that CBS would be accused of making light of racial issues. Sheldon Leonard, of course, knew better, and he and Carl said, no, Rob Petrie's the one that's going to look silly.
Rob, this is our baby, and that's all there is to it.
Honey, he doesn't even look like us.
The network and sponsors feared a negative reaction from the audience.
God bless Carl Reiner and Sheldon Leonard. They both said the following: look, we'll do the show, and if the audience reacts as negatively as you predict, we'll pay for the show. But if they don't, you pay for it and put it on.
Honey, that's probably the Peters. Now brace yourself.
Rob, nobody is taking this baby. Do you hear me? Nobody.
Well, I think it'd be better if you went to your room. I can handle it.
I am staying right here.
The surprise entrance of Mr. Peters.
Hi, we're Mr. and Mrs. Peters.
Come in.
Played by future Mission Impossible star Greg Morris, paid off.
Mrs. Peters, won't you come in?
When they walked in the door and the audience saw them, they laughed and they laughed. We cut the cameras and just stood there and waited. It was the longest laugh I can ever remember.
Why didn't you tell me on the phone?
Missed the expression on your face?
People say, what is your favorite show? Well, I always think of the show that I had the most fun shooting, and it was called Where Did I Come From?
Yeah, that's a story I want to hear about the day I was born.
Oh, that was a pretty exciting 24 hours.
Were you there, Mommy?
I was there.
Good.
Written by Carl Reiner, Where Did I Come From aired on January 3rd, 1962, during the show's first season.
The madness of the pregnancy and my nervousness staying dressed all day and all night with a packed bag in my hand. Yeah, my hat.
It's time!
So many things happened during the filming that we didn't even rehearse. It became madness.
Hey, Rob, it's your wife. I think this is it.
Oh, hand me the phone.
Right hand.
I have gotten Maury's pants on, and I'm trying to call a cab.
Hello, operator. Operator, my wife's having a baby. Oh, wait a minute. Give me the police.
Rob, why don't we just call another taxi?
Yeah, let me call my company. We'll have another cab here in 5 minutes.
Yeah, Rob,
There's not going to be any company. Oh, don't hang up!
And I said, don't hang up. I broke myself up, which is, you know, the very height of comedy when you can do that.
One of Mary Tyler Moore's favorite episodes also aired that first season. The Curious Thing About Women was first seen on January 10th, 1962.
Any mail for me?
Yes, a letter from your cousin Joe and one from your agent.
It's the one where I've been accused by Rob of opening his mail.
Must be kind of disappointed. I only got 2 letters this morning.
No, there were a couple of others.
Well, I don't like to be nosy, honey, but where are they?
Well, they were only ads, dear. Nothing interesting.
Hardly worth steaming open, huh?
And I say, you're right, I have been and I won't do it. And he says, well, how will I know you won't do it? You're very good at steaming them open. He sends a huge package. was really fun to do. Oh, I loved that a lot.
Honey, I'm home.
And I had to try to explain and apologize and be really, really comedically dumb.
Honey? Honey, are you in there?
Honey, did a package come for me?
When we return, more classic moments from classic episodes.
She was naked in a bathtub, and all of America pictured that.
Leonard, how can you be stuck in a bathtub? Is it that narrow?
And later, Rosemarie loses her husband, and the show nearly loses Rosemarie.
I went to Sheldon and I said, I don't think I can do this last year.
When we go back inside the Dick Van Dyke Show on Inside TV Land.
Oh, Rob, please turn this program off. It scares me.
Honey, not during the climax?
During its 5 brilliant seasons in prime time, the Dick Van Dyke Show generally coaxed laughs from the problems of real people in real situations. But for some memorable episodes, producer Carl Reiner and his writers employed dream sequences for a creative change of pace, including a second season show written by Reiner called It May Look Like a Walnut.
Well, you saw the part where that pretty housewife bought the bag of walnuts, didn't you?
No, that's when that crazy music started and I went under.
I did use dreams a few times to get craziness into a show. And that was one of my favorite shows, The Walnut Show, because that one was a show that a few people in the front office didn't have faith in it, and they said, man, it's not going to work. Well, you do it if you want.
One of the front office folks without faith in the script was Sheldon Leonard.
We read the script and we were all hysterical and laughing and everything. And Sheldon said, do you like it? And Dick had said, yeah, I think it's great. Maury, do you like it? Yeah. What do you think? I think it's, well, we're going to have a lot of fun with that. He says, I think it stinks. He said, if you're going to do it, good luck. And he walked out. He had never done that before.
Laura, where are you? Laura! No.
The episode was filmed on January 15th, 1963.
Laura!
And in front of everybody, Sheldon said, it's one of the funniest shows I've ever seen. I was completely wrong. You were absolutely right in doing it. Takes a big man to do that.
At times, budgetary necessity was the mother of comic invention.
Sometimes when they needed a cheaper, low-budget show, we'd do a stuck in a show, which meant stuck in a something. Stuck in an elevator, stuck in an attic.
Darling, can't you open the door?
It's locked, honey. If you want me, you'll have to get out of the tub.
I think Laura got her foot stuck in the tub.
Honey, what is your foot stuck in?
The faucet.
The faucet?
You know, the little pipe that the water comes out of.
Well, that's not the faucet, honey.
Rob, I don't care what you call it. My big toe is stuck in it.
Well, how did you do it?
I was playing with a grip.
What?
Written by Carl Reiner, Never Bathe on Saturday was filmed in February of '65. Not a particularly good time for Mary Tyler Moore.
One week when Mary was trying to quit smoking, it was the only time she ever lost her temper because she was going insane.
Carl used to write scripts, or the others would write scripts that featured one of us every 6 weeks. And my time was coming up, and Carl was saying, oh, wow, wait till you see this script.
It's always got so many good things in it, and it got Mary naked in the bathtub. What can be better?
And I was off stage the whole time. I was locked in a bathroom in the Plaza Hotel with my toe stuck in the faucet of the bathtub.
You stay right there. Don't make a move. Honey, you all right?
Oh, Rob.
I'm sorry you look so funny.
You guys want to see something ridiculous?
I, stupid little ingenue that I was, couldn't get that was great. that you would be visualizing me sitting in the bathtub with my toe stuck in the faucet.
On the run-through on Friday, she didn't perform. She just read her lines, and I was furious. I screamed at her. How could you do that? What's a man? You're a professional.
She just broke into tears.
And I left the set and I went into my dressing room and slammed the door.
She said, I can't come to work tomorrow after what you've said. I said, listen, I haven't blown in 4 years. This is the first time I yelled at you. That's why it's so terrible. You're not known as a yeller. You don't scream at people.
Mary and Carl's confrontation was a rare, tense moment on the otherwise upbeat set of The Dick Van Dyke Show. But not long into the show's third season, the creative Camelot enjoyed by the show's cast and crew was shaken by a tragedy outside the studio walls.
Something has happened in the motorcade route. Stand by, please.
I'll never forget that day as long as I live. Glenn Ross, the property master, came running in, ashen, white-faced, from the prop room and said, Kennedy was shot.
And we all just sat down in the chair and stared at him. And waiting, somebody brought a radio in.
President's been shot. We said, what?
President Kennedy has been assassinated. It's official now. The President of the United States is dead.
Well, you never saw people just go like this. And then, oh my God, we were in shock. And we just couldn't believe it. We looked at one another like, I'm dreaming.
But 4 days later, there was another show to film, an episode featuring a birthday party for Richie. Though nobody was in the mood for a birthday party, they decided to go forward with the shoot that night. But for the first time, the show was filmed without a live audience.
Who wanted to do a show with an audience? Who wanted to do a comedy show?
Worse than that, that night, I had to go record an album. It was called Songs I Like by Dick Van Dyke. And the band, the orchestra, sitting there with tears running down their cheek. Why we didn't cancel that, I don't know. It was miserable.
We never left that television set 4 goddamn days. And my husband, being a trumpet player, when the guy played taps, he missed the high note. And my husband went, God damn it, I knew he'd miss it, Out of panic comes laughter,
When we return, a problem begins behind the scenes.
I don't think anybody who's going into addiction is aware that they're going into it.
And the Dick Van Dyke Show signs off.
It was tough. It was tough because we were leaving our family.
We had a little party and nobody felt like celebrating.
When we go back inside the Dick Van Dyke Show on Inside TV Land.
I understand you're not going to do the show anymore.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
we have another full
go.
season. Well, I mean after the next season. After the next season.
Then you'll know us under the name of Sam Rerun. You'll know me.
That's what happened to old actors. They never die. They just have reruns.
That's right. Roderick Crawford is still around.
Sure. Yeah, but Dick has quite a few picture commitments of which he's going to do, and so that's mainly the reason the show is.
And we're all
going to finish up on top. We're all going to stick together.
After 4 acclaimed seasons and multiple Emmy Awards, the cast and crew of The Dick Van Dyke Show headed into the fall of 1965, knowing that their 5th year on the air would be their last.
5 years was thought to be a good number of years to do a show, and then you really should bow out gracefully. And everybody wanted to go on to do other things.
Mary and Dick were being seduced by the major studios who waved big picture commitments in front of them, and they thought that they'd have a bigger and better career there than they were having in television.
Dick Van Dyke had already enjoyed a taste of movie stardom in Walt Disney's Mary Poppins, and Carl Reiner was set to star in the film The Russians Are Coming, The Russians Are Coming.
I am fascinated. I would like to see the whole movie.
Well, by all means.
Where can we see the rest of them?
At my apartment.
Or at this theater under the title, The Russians Are Coming, The Russians Are Coming.
Dick and Carl, I think both of them said they didn't want to do anymore. They thought they were dried out, which was ridiculous because we'd never done a show in color. We could have gone 2 years just in color. And Sheldon was very upset because Sheldon said they could back up the Brinks truck as far as money is concerned. Why are they quitting now?
If it was just money they wanted, they were at the point where they could have written their own ticket.
I think it would have been possible for it to go on for a couple more seasons. I don't know. But I think they wanted to do other things, and it had been cream, you know.
The Dick Van Dyke Show's 5th and final season was set to start in the fall of '65.
Are the fellas all still chasing you around?
Well, I don't want to say anything, but coming down on the subway, I had to change my seat 5 times.
Some guy got fresh with you?
Yeah, finally.
But before the season began, the laughter gave way, once again, to tears.
When you're doing a show for 5 years, there are a lot of sad, terrible moments, personal and national, like the death of a president. But the death of Bobby Guy, Rosie's husband, was terrible because there was a couple that really were in love.
My husband's death was big surprise, big shock.
Oh, devastated her and all of us. He fell ill and died and wasted away, and to this day, nobody knows why. I think that was the most devastating to Rosie because she didn't know why.
She didn't want to come back to work. She wanted to just hole up.
I went to Sheldon and I said, I don't think I can do this last year. I was just blah. Because I was married 20 years when he passed away. And I had a daughter that I had to bring up, and I said, I just can't do it. I just can't work anymore. And John Rich came to my house about 8 o'clock at night.
And I talked to her for a whole night, practically. Tried to convince her to stay. But it was a terrible time.
He was there till 2 o'clock in the morning talking to me. And my mother finally convinced me, don't you think you should go home by now? You know. And he looked at me and he says, have I convinced you? And I said, yes. He said, then I've done my job. And he went home.
And she did come back, but we thought it was touch and go there for a while. She was in such deep mourning. But I think being a child of show business, she knows that you got to go back, and she did.
Rosemarie's fellow cast members, for 5 years a surrogate family, helped to ease her back to work.
Hey, look, why does the rest of you go on to lunch? I'd like to stay here and watch Laura on the show. Is that all right, Alan?
Okay, we'll be at the Purple Peacock.
Hey, listen, I'd like to watch that Johnny Patrick show. It's a lot less fattening than lunch.
Does he wear his toupee at home?
Oh, golly, yes, he wears it all the time.
You mean that Alan Brady is really bald?
The show's final season debuted on September 15th, 1965, with a classic episode called Coast to Coast Big Mouth.
Sincerely, Alan, really sincerely, and you can ask anybody, I have always said that I like you so much better without your,
There's hair!
As the laughs continued, the cast and crew grew closer, and the magical days of the Dick Van Dyke Show grew fewer.
Your book's going to be a television series?
It's true. Of course, I won't do it till after my series is defunct, which may never be.
Alan is going to play me.
Yeah, and the 3 of us are going to write it, and Leonard Burshot is going to produce it.
That's right.
For Dick Van Dyke himself, these were days of mixed emotion. He looked forward to a bright new future. But as Rob Petrie, he'd become famous, winning 3 Emmy Awards while having the time of his life.
I remember him getting up and seeing him go to accept his Emmys and jump up, and that's about the happiest I've seen him.
I'm crying. Oh, there must be something awfully nice about Emmy Awards, otherwise I wouldn't feel so good about it.
He knew those days were very, very special. He knew he'd probably never have the same experience again, and I think he enjoyed every second of it.
But Dick Van Dyke was not enjoying every second of his last season. Behind the scenes, he'd begun to develop a drinking problem.
I didn't know it at the time, of course. I don't think anybody who's going into addiction is aware that they're going into it because you'd cut it off then while you still had some control over it.
Dick was a drinker, but I didn't know about it because he was like every American you ever saw. Had a cocktail after hours, you know.
I know at the end of each show, there were times when he liked a bourbon and Coke, and so I would simply hand it to him and leave him alone. But I never saw Dick really work under the influence of liquor, ever. He'd have his nightcap, as I say, and that was about what I would see.
I never saw him drink. I never saw him drunk.
It never, ever affected his work. He was always first there in the morning, always knew his lines. It was never a problem for him.
So we never knew. I mean, if you told me, if somebody told me that Dick was a drunk, I would never believe it.
In the years to come, Van Dyke's drinking problem would threaten his health and career. But in the summer of '66, nobody saw trouble on the horizon.
Everybody was here. Even my Aunt Mildred was here. She came all the way from Ohio.
The last episode of The Dick Van Dyke Show aired on June 1st, 1966.
Did you even notice that I'm covered with grease? And my ankle's swollen to twice its normal size?
The show was still garnering huge ratings. After 5 memorable years, The Dick Van Dyke Show was going out on top.
We had done 158 shows. That's a lot of shows. And we had other places we wanted to go.
Well, it was sad. It was sad for everybody because it was like a family breaking up. And so when it came to an end, it was like nobody wanted to say goodbye.
You hate to break up that family. You hate to break up those people.
It was tough because we were leaving our family. You know, the people that we'd squabbled with, the people that we'd hugged and made up with, the people who cheered us on when we did something kind of good.
The final cast party reflected the bittersweet mood of the cast and crew.
It was a bad night. We had a little party and nobody felt like celebrating.
I think it really began to hit people, that party, how much they had invested of their life in that show and how much they were going to miss it.
We were going on to other things, but it wasn't the same. You know, we knew we would be working. It wasn't that, but it was the pain of a sense of loss.
I remember the wrap party was just real emotional. I was just real upset about the whole thing ending, and I didn't want it to.
I know I've heard other people say who've done long-running shows together, it really hurts. And unfortunately, in this business, it happens a lot. But that was the most traumatic one for me.
Oh. When that show ended, I was just like I lost my husband, you know? It was my life. And I said, well, what am I going to do now? Who wanted to see something like that end? It was wonderful. It was the only thing I could remember of actually looking forward to go to work.
When we return, the Dick Van Dyke Show's legacy of laughter.
When the actors would say, why do you want to do this take again? I said, because I don't want you to be embarrassed 30 years from now when the show is running.
I still kind of have to pinch myself about when I think about how lucky I was.
When we go back inside the Dick Van Dyke Show on Inside TV Land.
You know, it's such fun to give somebody something they've never had before. That's what I got from my wife. Something so new, it wasn't even around last Christmas. It's the Kodak Pocket Instamatic camera. There it is. No, it isn't. Where did I put it? Got to see this camera. It's about, that big. To load it, you just slip in a film cartridge. She's going to love it if I can find it. The great thing about it is it's so small, fits right in your pocket. It's even smaller than I remembered it being. Now I can show you how great it is. You can carry it with you wherever you go. It's easy to load. Maybe a small camera, but it takes big, sharp, clear pictures. Look at these. Aren't those great? The Kodak Pocket Instamatic camera starts at less than $28. The complete outfit's a little more. Just tell them to remember which pocket they put it in. The Kodak Pocket Instamatic camera.
When the Dick Van Dyke Show went off the air in the summer of 1966, a shining moment in television history came to a graceful conclusion. After production wrapped on the 5th and final season in 1966, the cast of the Dick Van Dyke Show went their separate ways. Rose Marie was still reeling from the recent loss of her husband.
And luckily, Hollywood Squares came along. He said, you don't have to sing, you don't have to do anything, just talk and say a couple of funny words. And I said, okay, and I was with that show for 14 years. Can't hold a job.
Though Rose Marie was a regular on Hollywood Squares from 1966 through 1980, for most TV fans, she'll always be Alan Brady's lady writer, Sally Rogers.
Women used to write to me and say, because of you, I became a writer, because you were an equal with the guys, you were making the same money. And I thought that was wonderful. I was really one of the first feminists, I guess, that happened on television.
In 1996, 30 years after the last Dick Van Dyke episode, Rose Marie teamed with her good friend Maury Amsterdam on the NBC sitcom Caroline in the City.
Hello. Hi, I'm Caroline Duffy, and this is Richard Korinsky. We spoke on the phone earlier, do you remember?
Do I remember? Are you kidding, girlie? At my age, I'm lucky if I remember to zip up.
At his age, he's lucky to remember to zip down.
It was the last time they would work together. That same year, the man who brought Buddy Sorrell to life passed away. The following year, in January of '97, the man who saved the Dick Van Dyke Show, Sheldon Leonard, died at the age of 89. Leonard's death capped a series of sad losses, dating back to the untimely deaths of Richard Deacon in 1984 and Jerry Paris in '86.
I love all those people. They're just, I'm sorry that Maury is gone. And Deacon. And Jerry Paris, you know, the next door neighbor. I mean, Jerry, who succeeded me as director.
But I always think they're alive because I keep seeing them on when I flash on the show at night sometimes to see what they're doing.
Of all the show's veterans, it was Mary Tyler Moore who experienced the greatest growth during and after the Dick Van Dyke Show.
She came in there, a 23-year-old aspiring straight actress, and walked out of there one of the best comedians in the business. That's what that 5 years did for her.
When the show ended, Mary's movie career faltered in films like Change of Habit with Elvis Presley and Thoroughly Modern Millie. Then, in 1969, Dick Van Dyke reintroduced Mary to TV audiences on his hit CBS special, Dick Van Dyke and the Other Woman. Mary's appearance got the attention of CBS, and another chapter in sitcom history was soon being written.
I'm lucky enough to have lived in 2 Camelots. It was that one, but then the Camelot that Grant Tinker formed when we decided to do the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
With then-husband Grant Tinker, Mary produced and starred in her own sitcom for CBS. From 1970 through '77, the Emmy Award-winning Mary Tyler Moore Show brought back the comic class that had distinguished the Dick Van Dyke Show. Her years working with Dick had taught Mary some important professional lessons.
Such as be there for the people you're working with, respect them and support them, and surround yourself with the best. That I learned from Dick.
After his triumphs in Mary Poppins and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, Dick Van Dyke's film career failed to take off, and he came back to TV in 1971. Co-starring Hope Lang, the new Dick Van Dyke Show ran until '74, but Dick lost interest after producer Carl Reiner quit in a dispute with network censors. Meanwhile, Dick's drinking problem was getting out of control.
It was years before I finally woke up and said, wait a minute. I just tried to stop that and couldn't. So then you know, you panic and know you got a problem.
A few years later, '73, it started to get to him. His eyes started looking red-rimmed, but he still rehearsed and he still did. I don't think he ever slurred his speech in his whole life. I don't think, however much he drank, you never know it.
Van Dyke went public about his drinking problem in 1974 when he starred in his first made-for-TV movie. His risky, gripping performance as an alcoholic in The Morning After earned him an Emmy nomination.
And a lot of my friends and representatives said, you're going to you're going to kill yourself. People will not accept it. But it just seemed right because in those days, the stigma that was attached to alcoholism was that you were a Skid Row bum, not a middle-class, ordinary person with a family and a job. I have people come to me who have been to rehabilitation in the last 30 years, and many of the places show that movie. So I feel very gratified about that.
Like many of the men and women inspired by his performance in the film, Dick Van Dyke overcame his alcoholism. And in 1992, his TV stardom was also fully recovered with the debut of his new CBS series, Diagnosis Murder.
Dick Van Dyke has been in prime time for about 40 years. A great personality and enormous talents have kept Dick Van Dyke, in the winner's circle for these many years.
I guess the fact that he's now in his,
30, 40, 50th year of work shows that whatever he has is very durable. He seems decent, and that's got nothing to do with talent, but I think it goes a long way to letting people give you a glimpse of your talent, because you like Dick Van Dyke.
Dick Van Dyke's television career has spanned 5 decades, and the show that bears his name has come to be seen as one of the all-time great TV comedies.
You know, there's no question that it raised the bar and it was unique at the time.
Looking at the Dick Van Dyke Show, which was so impeccably written, it gave writers everywhere something they wished to emulate.
Think back on all the tales that you remember of Camelot.
In the years to come, many of those who worked on the Dick Van Dyke Show would come to remember it as an ideal time, a sitcom Camelot.
Camelot's as good as any take. I mean, it was an ideal time.
Camelot is a very good name. It was Eden.
It was Camelot. People liked each other. People worked hard, very talented, very creative people. It was the best time.
It really was, because of all of those people who created that atmosphere.
We didn't have to worry about anything but doing the best work we could. The writers wrote the best scripts, and we brought to the scenes our own experiences, and we're free, very free, to do whatever we wanted.
To me, the Dick Van Dyke Show was Camelot as a writer. It welcomed what I had to say. It welcomed my work. And that's really all a writer wants to do.
I think the measure of how great the show was and still is that 35 years later, we're all sitting here still talking about it.
Don't let it be forgot that once there was a spot for one brief shining moment that was known as Camelot.
I would describe it as one of the best working situations I ever had in my whole life. We worked hard, we did a show and it worked. I mean, that's all you can ask for.
I can't think of anything to say other than to, sum up that those 5 years were 5 of the happiest years of my life. And they make me cry today.
It was the best 5 years of my life, and the most creative. I had the most fun, and probably learned the most. And I miss it to this day.
For happily ever aftering than here in Camelot.
Hope you enjoyed Inside TV Land, the Dick Van Dyke Show. Lots more reasons to appreciate this classic series and talk about rewatchability. And don't forget, you get all the fans' favorite episodes all this weekend as Dick Van Dyke Fandemonium takes over TV Land.